Thank you very much, Anu. Can you confirm that you can hear me okay? Very good.
Yes, I hear you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share with the members of the Soil for Society Network some information about the soil-related research that is conducted at the CGIAR network. As you mentioned, this is a network of international research organizations dealing with different crops or different topics, including livestock, fish, water management policies. So there is a network of 15 centers globally. I am based at the International Potato Center in Lima, Peru, where the headquarters of the International Potato Center are. And but my current work involves working with 13 international centers in areas related to crop-based systems. So I would like to share with you a little bit on the work that we are doing, starting with a reflection on the global trends that we are facing and the relationship with soils. Then the CG structure, how we're working and where the soil-related research fits. Then moving to system thinking and soil research, and providing examples of the work of different centers at different levels, and finalizing with a few reflections. So starting with global trends, currently we are facing challenges which are becoming more and more complex. There are trends regarding demographic changes, migration, population increases, and happening in areas where actually soils tend to be more degraded. That's the case of savanna regions in Africa, Northern Africa, or even Central America as well. Another trend that we are all familiar with is climate change. You know, climate change is having an effect on soils and vice versa. And that all is connected to food production. Environmental degradation is happening as we speak, and soil is among the resources that are more rapidly degraded. Unfortunately, that's not sufficiently visible in the international discussions. And of course, the trend to inequalities that is growing, particularly in those most vulnerable areas. However, there is also a big trend on opportunities and the frontier technologies that are happening at the moment are developing very fast. Digital technologies, remote sensing, big data, artificial intelligence, etc. Those technologies offer the possibility to develop solutions more rapidly than in the past. Now, this is the way the work is organized at the moment in the CGIAR network. We have 3 global science groups, and I will start with the one that is more traditional in the CGIAR, which is called genetic innovations. And that's where new crop varieties are developed. And in relation to soil, they developed or include traits related to soils like tolerance to salinity or nutrient use efficiency. Then we have a second group which is looking at field farm management. This group develops crop, livestock, fish technologies. And in this group, the different centers are working on topics, for example, soil management, nutrient management, mechanization for small-scale farms. Our clients are small-scale farmers in low and middle-income countries. And the third group is looking at higher levels of the system, looking at policies, markets, and that the idea is that all of these 3 disciplinary areas, if you want, are connected through integrated initiatives, regional integrated initiatives that are trying to integrate these different topics into concrete solutions for the countries where we work, so that the countries can really achieve the impact at the end the impact, particularly in relation to the Sustainable Development Goals. We have big projects in the CGIAR, what we call at the moment initiatives. And these are just examples of initiatives that include soil-related research. One is called Excellence in Agronomy. As you may imagine, that has a very strong soil component, soil management, soil health, but also mechanization. Then we have an initiative on plant health, which also has a soil component because of soil-borne diseases for many crops. Mixed farming systems, looking also at soil components, nature-positive solutions, agroecology, also from that particular approach point of view. Those are thematic initiatives, but we also have regionally oriented initiatives, the one of West and Central Africa, the one of East and Southern Africa, the one of West Asia and North Africa, and also a couple of them in Asia. So the idea is that the different solutions for crops, livestock, fish, water management policies are integrated to respond to the context and the countries. I would like to share with you a few ideas, what I think should be moving forward more and more. Soil-related research is about systems thinking. We are very good at developing components of the management, whether at the crop or at the field or at the farm or higher level policies. However, I think what we are not doing sufficiently well is integrating these different levels. And at the moment, the complexity of the challenges that we have require that these different levels are well connected, so that what we developed at the level of crop field, for example, inform decision-making at the level of the farm, where actually the farmers are the principal actors, but also what happens at community level, landscape level, or regional and country level. For example, policies have an impact, hopefully a positive impact, on what small-scale farmers can do in their farms. So the idea is that we look at and we develop components at different levels, but we try to integrate them. So we try to understand the trade-offs of working at these different levels or introducing changes or innovations at these different levels. And I would like to share with you some examples of the work that the different centers are doing to understand these interconnected factors around soil. You can see here that this diagram coming from the Alliance Biodiversity CGIAR. It shows very well some of these connecting arrows around soil, water, forest, forage, livestock, crops, people as a central part, but also higher level of goals of sustainable intensification, integrated resource management, but also what is needed regarding markets, policies, institutions, and on the top, climate, which is something that we cannot escape from, climate change. So if we go from the lower level of the system up, we can see examples of research. We have at the level of crops and fields and interaction with the soil, the long-term experiments that are being conducted by several CGIAR centers. These centers manage 38 long-term experiments, which are from 7 to 61 years old. Those are continuous experiments which are generating very valuable information on how soil, crops, and environment reacts to different management options, particularly fertilizer applications or crop rotations, land preparation methods, etc. So this is a critical aspect that is not easy to maintain. Long-term experiments cannot be managed by only short-term projects. They do require continuous investment, but this is very valuable now that we have big data revolution and artificial intelligence. Those big databases can really be used for informing future decisions. This is just the example of the work at the International Rice Research Institute, IRI, in the Philippines. This is a long-term experiment that's been there since 1962 on continuous cropping, and another one starting in 1993 with long-term rotation. And they are measuring soil characteristics, carbon, greenhouse emissions, of course, crop yields, etc. So this is very important for understanding possible scenarios for the future. Another example coming from the Africa Rice Center in Ivory Coast. They have a 10-year experiment there where rotations that involve rice with other crops like stylosanthus, maize, cassava, and different cover crops. And in this way, they are understanding what happens with yield of the crops, quality of the crops, but also soil health. For example, carbon content in the soil, water infiltration, etc. And this is very, very important for research and for understanding future conditions. Another example coming from the International Potato Center in the Andean region, where they are monitoring soil microbiome changes according to different management topics. And this work comes from 10 years ago, where the potato biome, the soil biome around the potato roots started to be monitored, because there was this hypothesis that since potato evolved in the Andean region for thousands of years, it's very, very likely that a specific soil microbiome has also evolved around the potato crop. And that it was the idea to understand what type of microbial communities existed associated with potato, beneficial or non-beneficial. And that now is being used to see how the microbiome around potatoes could be improved as part of soil health. So they are doing different experiments there that they expect to be long-term as well. But now we have, of course, all the advances in bioinformatics and genomics and sequencing that will allow to identify very rapidly all the bacteria strains, fungi, and all microorganisms that would exist associated with potato roots and the potential effects they could have in soil and plant health. So those are examples at the field level. If we do farm and community level, where farmers in many parts of the world, women farmers are making decisions, what options they could have to improve soil health. And again, the example coming from Africa Rice, they are exploring the use of biochar. The biochar is a carbonization of the residues of rice with a method that allows the carbon to be maintained in the structure. So that carbon goes back to the soil and it's not burned as CO2 to the atmosphere. So that they're exploring where this biochar could be applied with in combination with fertilizers, and they are observing not only yield increases but also reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and they are now exploring options for recommending those to rice farmers in rain-fed lowland areas of Ivory Coast. Now in Ethiopia, another center, ICRISAT, is developing options for lime applications in acidity, in soils that have high acidity. This is extremely complicated challenge in Africa in particular, but around the world. Acidity in the soils limits crop production, nutrient management. But it's important to characterize very specifically those soils to see where and how lime could have an option. And that I will talk a little bit more about that later on. But the idea is to inform farmers, but also organizations, extension organizations, research organizations about this possible solution for acidity in the soils. If we move to another option for at the farm level, conservation agriculture appears, of course, as a key aspect of it. The work of CGIAR, the International Center for Research in Dry Areas, for example, and they are working very closely with the government of Morocco, because the government over there set a goal to reach 1 million hectares under conservation agriculture by 2030. And that requires a number of changes, a number of science-based solutions from soil management, water management, mechanization. As you can see here, this particular picture is the specific type of seedlings that they need for conservation agriculture in order to minimize soil movement, soil disturbance, and conserve the soils. And here examples coming from CIMMYT, in Mexico, where they are also conducting experimentation on zero tillage and different methods for soil preparation, soil management, soil fertilization, under conservation agriculture approaches. Soil cover options are also recommended in several parts of the world, but they are not applicable everywhere. Not an option in water-limited cropping systems, but also this overall recommendation of leaving crop residues in the field depends on the context. In several parts of the world, there is a strong competition for residues for other uses, for example, livestock feed. So that recommendation needs to be adapted, contextualized. In other parts, like in Asia or India, there's a lot of residue coming from rice crops that can be left on the floor or included in the soil. But in many parts, that's not happening. And what happens is the rice straw is burned, and that contributes a lot to pollution to the environment. And crop diversification as well can happen at the farm level, using alternatives that come from traditional knowledge. For example, the case of the milpa system, where maize and beans and other crops are associated. That system has thousands of years, or other alternatives of rotation crops that can have an effect on soil health, soil management, but also profitability for the farmers. And the case of diversifying rice-based systems in Asia, this is the case of Bangladesh by the International Potato Center, is important. There, usually the crop cultivation is limited by the climate, but also by soil constraints. So what usually happens is they have one season of rice, and then the long season of fallow, where there is nothing on the ground, and the soil can be eroded or degraded. So what they're doing is exploring the introduction of short-term high-value crops. Potato, one of them, but it could be vegetables, legumes, etc., to diversify the system, but also protect the soil. And that's the case that's happening now. And the picture here on the left is traditional potato, empty soil with no rice straw. As you can see, the plants are not growing that well because humidity goes very fast. But then when you plant with minimum tillage or zero tillage, only leaving the rice straw, and the rice straw keeps soil moisture and residues of nutrients from the rice season, then the potato grows very well, and the harvest is very easily conducted because then you have only basically the straw covering the tubers. And when you measure soil quality index, conventional management and zero tillage, clearly the quality index, carbon content, water, etc., is increased. And when you compare 1 year to the next in terms of zero tillage, you see the same effect in this case of soil organic carbon increase. And that's not only beneficial for the soil, but also the profitability. The yield of potato is higher with this system compared to the conventional system with no mulch of rice straw. So those were examples at the level of farms. We move higher to landscape. So that's aggregation of farms, communities, etc. And then we need to make decisions at larger areas. The example of ICRISAT comes again. They have been doing soil research for many years. They have very well-equipped laboratories, but now the data coming from soil analysis can be aggregated, combined with remote sensing and modeling to be able to advise farmers and organizations helping farmers what type of options they could have for managing the soils in a more sustainable way. So you could have options that are related to soil and water management that could reduce erosion, for example, but also options that are related to nutrient management. Recommendations could be about nutrient applications and avoiding certain fertilizers, etc. And also recommendations could go to cropping system management, for example, to reduce the effect of soil acidity, including in the systems options of crops that resist or tolerate acidity, potato, sweet potato, barley, etc. Or making decisions or recommendations to use some ameliorants, liming, organic amendments, etc. That could happen at the community or regional or even national levels. And all of that is informed by the evidence that these organizations are generating. But there are emerging questions when you move higher in the system. How to extrapolate field and farm experimental results to larger areas, countries, or regions? Or, for example, can artificial intelligence now offer options to move across scales and support decision-making? Can the data being generated at field farm level being used for predictions and wider applications? And this is an example at the higher policy level. The case of management of acid soils as the work of two current initiatives, Excellence in Agronomy and National Policies, and the IITA, the Tropical Institute, International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, also International Maize and Wheat Center, and understanding what the situation of soil acidity is when you move to, for example, continental level in Africa, where acidity is having serious problem. 33 million hectares affected by acidity in Africa, almost a quarter of sub-Saharan Africa cropland, generating about 8 billion of losses each year. Now, what are the options? Lime requirements, for example, but not everywhere. They need to estimate and target where lime could be applied as part of, for example, government interventions, policy interventions, subsidies, etc. It's not everywhere. It has to be highly contextualized. And then it's not profitable in all parts. Here you see the map only in the blue parts. The lime applications could be profitable, not in all parts. And that requires really connecting data, evidence from soil, crops, fields, farms, then landscape, then regional and country and regional levels. So key emerging questions there are, again, at that level, what types of policies are needed to support access to and affordability of lime? That is a key question. How is possible to make lime available for 10 million hectares? What type of support would be needed? So is it possible to redirect fertilizer subsidies? But many African countries are investing in fertilizer subsidies to alternatives that can enhance soil health in the longer term. Lime could be an option, and other options could exist. In general, what policies can support soil health in the long term without sacrificing the need for food and income in the short term? There is this trade-off that you may want to improve soil health, but that takes 5 years. But while you improve your soil health, your yield goes down. And in some parts of Africa and Asia and Latin America, farmers cannot afford going down in terms of yield or profitability. So we need to consider all those factors. So closing the loop, as you have seen several examples of soil-related research that goes from crop, field, farm, community, landscape, and regional and country levels. But at the end of the day, we need to come back to application at the level of the farm. We need to support decision-making, not only of farmers, but also public-private organizations about soil management in general, that can enhance the profitability and sustainability of agriculture. And we think that we need to strengthen system thinking. That stakeholders need to think of the overall system that connects these different levels and understand these interfaces to be able to make appropriate decisions. And that is a challenge because we tend to be focused on particular levels or particular components of the system, but not interconnected. And here we are talking about soil, but soil is connected with water. It's connected with crops, with livestock, with families, with communities, with markets. So all that interconnection requires to be understood better. And for that, we require systems thinking or strengthening our system thinking. Just to conclude my presentation, just to remind us that soil connects us all, from plants to food, people, countries, and regions. And small-scale farmers produce most of the food we eat in developing countries, but they are not yet taking advantage of innovative soil management methods. In some parts of the world, even they don't have access to the basic soil management options, like minimal fertilizer applications. So there is the need to conduct research at different levels and particularly interconnect those levels, understand these interfaces and the trade-offs so that the recommendations can emerge and be applicable at wider level for millions of people, not just a few thousands of hectares. And the only way we can do that is to support decision makers with science-based evidence. So all recommendations should be science-based, and we need to combine strengths of multiple organizations, research, education, extension, development, to really conduct research, but also particularly scale innovations at large for large areas, for millions of people to generate the impact that we need. So that is all what I wanted to share with you this afternoon. These are my personal reflections. I have used examples provided by my colleagues. If any of you have particular interest on a specific topic, just drop me a note. I can connect you with the teams in the field who can give you much more information that I have presented today. Thank you very much.